Okay, let's talk real quick about file formats for audio. There are probably three formats that you're maybe familiar with, one more than others. One is the MP3. You're probably familiar with an MP3 file. The other two main audio formats are WAV and AIF. Okay, and there's a bunch of other audio formats that you can see here, and there's actually even more than this. But the main three that we work with the most are AIF, WAV, and MP3. Now, here's the big difference. AIF and WAV are uncompressed files, meaning that if you save something as a WAV file, it is everything. Okay, it's going to be a much bigger file and it's going to be full quality. Everything we have, all that data that we know about that's in that file is going to go into a WAV file. An MP3 file is a compressed file format, which means, to simplify, that means that when it saves it as an MP3 file, it's going to throw out some information. There's going to be some information that it thinks we probably don't need that, and it's going to get rid of it to make the file smaller. That's why MP3s are cool for sharing on the internet, because they're smaller. But MP3s are not good for making full audio tracks out of, because they're missing information. You're kind of already, if you start working on a project by importing an MP3, you're kind of already starting at a disadvantage. So when we're working with professional quality audio, we want WAV or AIF. WAV is much more common these days. Even though it says Microsoft here and AIF says Apple, both systems use them both. They're both uncompressed file formats, so they're both great. MP3s are still cool, but what an MP3 is good for is after you've made a whole project, then you save it as an MP3 so that you can send it to your spouse or your buddies. That's what MP3s are good for. Or you can upload to a streaming service or something like that. But while you're working on it, everything stays as an AIF or a WAV file. Now, what I'm talking about here is individual audio files. Let me show you, for example, here's my sample library. Here's just a ton of audio samples. Let's just go into, I don't know, anything. Okay, now you'll see that the majority of these are WAV files. Okay, so if I'm working with a sample, it's got to be a WAV file or an AIF file. But it's got to be an uncompressed audio file. Okay, I'm not going to use a sample that's an MP3 file. It's just not going to sound as good. So that's what I'm talking about, is your individual samples that you're going to be working with are WAV files. The session that you save, when you save a whole session in your software, that's going to be something proprietary. That's the name of the program. So I'm looking at a program called Audacity right now, and Audacity saves files as AUD, I think. I think it's AUD for Audacity is their project. So that will contain all of my files in it, all my uncompressed audio files. So Ableton file, FL Studio files, GarageBand files, those are all fine because they have the uncompressed audio in it. But the audio that you start from and that we work with for professional quality audio should always be in uncompressed format, WAV or AIF. Cool? Cool.